Welcome to Momentum Investing, property investing made easy. One of the world's top podcasts on property investing, bringing you the top experts in the field so you can learn firsthand what it takes to create passive income and take control over your financial future.
Hello, Momentum Investor, and welcome to the Momentum Investing Podcast. I'm super excited to announce today's episode because today's speaker is one of the men that taught me how to invest. When I was just starting out my journey, he showed me how to start finding deals, how to start doing deals, how to identifying the partners that will allow you to grow your portfolio quickly. And so now that we've started the Momentum Investing Podcast, interviewing the top teachers all over the world to invest, I've been asking him to come on and share his lessons. He is from the United States, he invests in the US, and he's built himself a massive company where he sources deals, or wholesaling as they say over there. He works with identifying new avenues, and in this episode, he'll show you exactly how you can start finding the best deals in the market, how to negotiate them, and what to expect going forward, so how to prepare for the times to come. It's a super exciting episode, and let's just jump right into it and start learning. All right, welcome Momentum Investors. We are here with Pip Stehlik all the way from the US. Welcome, Pip. We're happy to have you here.
It's great to be here, Daniel. Excited to share some stuff with everybody on your podcast.
Yeah, no, we're honored to have you. I mean, you were one of the people who actually got me started in property investing. So it's an honor to kind of come full circle and have you back.
Well, I guess what comes around goes around is the old saying. So it's great to be back, and I haven't seen you, I know, in a number of years, and so I'm glad that we were able to hook up, and you invited me to come on and talk.
Yeah, no, it's great to have you. And I'd love to hear kind of, I mean, obviously we're all very focused on what's going on over here in Europe and the UK and in our own markets, but what's happening in the US? Yeah.
Well, there's obviously lots of things going on, and I'm not even sure how the media portrays this in other countries. A lot of times, I've had the opportunity to teach and meet investors in 18 different countries across the world. So I'm always interested to see how other people view the U.S. I know how I view the U.S. growing up, being born here. I think, Daniel, your father is from the U.S. originally. Is that correct? I believe you.
Good
I remember
memory.
you telling
Yeah,
me.
we haven't spoken about that for years, but yeah, Dad's from San
Yeah.
Francisco.
So you've got a little bit of that blood or background in you as well. But yeah, I think the U.S. in an international standpoint gets, you guys hear enough about us just because our media is out there and it's everywhere. But, in some good ways, and then obviously some bad ways are that we hear. But, right now we have not seen a recession in the United States at all since 2000, end of 2008, first part of 2009. So it's been 11 years that not just property market, but the stock market, all the markets have been going up quite significantly. And as a real estate investor, one of the ways that I learned is the rich dad, poor dad, Robert Kiyosaki ways: invest for cash flow, invest for cash flow. But the nice part about real estate, you can make cash flow and your property value can go up. But we have not seen really any recession of any kind since 2009. So I have to admit,
Difference with like Europe here, because Europe has had a lot. I mean, Europe, a lot of countries were hit a lot harder than the US in 2008, 2009, like Greece and Spain. Obviously, that has caused the EU to have to kind of bail them out, and that's created a lot of issues in Europe. And then we've had a lot of immigration and obviously Brexit. So we haven't had a calm decade here. It's been pretty chaotic the last decade, while you guys in the US have had a much, so to speak, easier time financially.
well, it's easier when you're looking at property values going up, but it's also tougher when you're trying to find a good deal on a property, because when the property values are going up, people, will bid up prices and there'll be price wars and things like that. So from a value investor who's trying to buy property at a discount and buy for cash flow, that could be a bit of a challenge. The nice part about the U.S. When it comes to cash flow investing, it's such a large spread out country. I mean, we've got 330 million people spread out over a really diverse area. So if I'm focusing on Dallas, Texas is a great market to invest in the United States. I personally live in Kansas City, Missouri area. So if you don't know, if you're geographically challenged, don't know the U.S., it's smack dab in the middle of the country in one of the flyover states, as they like to call it. And so geographically, you're right in the middle of the country. But a lot of people know where Dallas, Texas is. And it traditionally has been a really good cash flow market. But the last 5-6 years, the market has gone up so much with appreciation that it's hard to buy for cash flow. But you don't have to go very far outside of Dallas. 3-4 hours to the south, you have both Houston and San Antonio, which are both still great cash flow markets. So the nice part about the U.S., it's very diverse, and you don't have to go very far. I know if you're in Sweden, 3 or 4 hours may seem like a long ways away. You guys can fly across Europe in less than that. I'm talking a 3 or 4 hour drive. But the point being is, even though there may be pockets where cash flow is hard to find, San Francisco, it's tough. New York City, it's tough. Miami, it's tough. But you don't have to go far out of Miami to find a lot of cash flow opportunities just across the state in Cape Coral, 2 hours away. You can still find good cash flow opportunities. So the nice part about it is, even though we've seen a lot of increase in prices in many areas, there's still a lot of places you can still buy at very affordable rates and still get nice cash flow. So even though we've seen a lot of appreciation, there's still a lot of cash flow opportunities in many areas around the United States.
That's awesome. So what do you see now? Obviously, you've had a good, well, just over a decade, and now the Corona pandemic hit, and obviously, we were talking about, people are filing for, unemployment, and there's so much going on right now.
Well, and the interesting thing about it is, I mean, and I can only give you opinions. Obviously, I don't have an inside track to anything, but a lot of it you can look at logically. I mean, my business partners and myself, my wife and myself, we've been waiting for a downturn. Historically, if you look at the United States, about every 5 to 8 years, there's some type of recession period, and it usually lasts 6 months to a year, but you can almost bank on the fact that every 5 to 8 years you're going to have a recession. So when we got past the eighth year, I mean, I know, Daniel, you're a baseball guy. I mean, we're in the ninth, actually we're in extra innings when it comes to when we should have a recession. And so we've all been waiting for it to happen, and it hasn't been happening. And so I have to admit, when I saw COVID coming, I shouldn't say I saw it coming. When it came in March and April, I'm thinking, oh, we're going to have a huge downturn. Well, the last 2 months, we have not seen a downturn. But logically speaking, we've had, I believe it's 35 million, and you can check all my stats. I'm not an expert on that. 35 million people apply for unemployment. I think that's probably 4 times the entire country of Sweden. And literally, we've had that many people apply for unemployment in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. Now,
put that
what
into
that
U.S. perspective, that's over 10%. That's like 11% of the entire population is now unemployed, in addition to those who already were.
Exactly right. And they don't even count as far as when we talk, let's say we have 330 million people in the country. They're not talking working adults, they're only talking about working adults. So the kids that are under 16 and the elderly that are above 65 or 70, that's not even considered in that population. So we're looking at probably, and I mean, obviously we don't know for sure, a 15 to 20% unemployment rate at some point in the next 60 or 90 days. Yeah. And I don't think anything's going to change to keep it less than 15%, which is, I'm 52 years old. In my lifetime, the only time we've ever seen that is 1981, 82, when we had double-digit unemployment. We just haven't ever seen it, since the Great Depression, when it was, 20%, which, and so we have a lot of unknown going on. And so I think we're going to see a downturn, but the last 30, 60 days of the pandemic, we really haven't seen it. I'm still making offers on property every day. I know my wife is sitting in the other room right now, and one of the things that I teach and preach all the time is making offers. And she's just sending out, I think as we speak, 400 or 500 offers on properties. And we always make offers at discounts. And a lot of times you just don't know what you're going to get. But we have not seen what I thought we were going to see, significant discounts on property in the last 60 days.
Well,
now,
let me ask you there about that. Sorry, I'm
go ahead.
interested in, So now, right now, when you're sending out these offers, how do you deter what kind of offers are you putting in? Are you asking for 20% discount, or are you going extreme now and going like, we want 50?
See, the last 10, 11 years, it's been about that 20% number. Um, I started though in the middle of March, end of March, I guess is what it would have been, at 50 cents on the dollar, just thinking, oh, there's going to be some serious whatever.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. And so the ones I know she's sending out today are at 20 and 30% discounts from the asking price. And these are all properties that are listed on the what we call the multiple listing service here. So they're all listed with real estate agents or estate agents, as you guys call them in your areas. And so it's not the hidden market. It's not somebody sending us a deal from a distressed seller. But we figure, there's multiple markets out there. There's the hidden market, the distressed sellers, but then there's also people on the that are listing properties that may sell. And if we don't continue to keep our offers in front of them, we don't know when there's going to be that stress on them. And so we're always looking for that distressed seller. And so, we're putting offers out on a regular basis, but we're still not seeing a lot of discounted prices. We'll see people counter offer. It may be a 5 to 10% discount, but we're not seeing what I have seen in the past. I remember 2008 putting offers in at 50 cents on the dollar and getting them. And which is kind of scary because you think, oh man, I offered too much if they said yes on the first offer. But that's the types of discounts we were seeing back in 2008. We're not seeing those yet. Will we see them in the next 60, 90, 120 days, 6 months, whatever we end up being? I don't know. But we're going to keep putting offers out there. I think you're going to see some opportunities because of the COVID and the pandemic. And then we've got a whole nother level of stuff going on with race relations and rioting and stuff going on in the United States.
Absolutely.
I mean, but once again, the sheer volume of people in the United States, even if we have 15, 20% unemployment, which is not good, that still means we probably have 250 million people employed in the country.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the nice part about the U.S. is that it's so big and spread out and vast that you may see a serious issue in, just name a city. New York City may be an area where we see a lot of downturn in things just because of that's where the pandemic epicenter was. But there are other areas that didn't get hit at all. Where I live, literally not hit at all with the pandemic, and safely enough, not very much with the riots and stuff. Right. But yet I still live in an area where there's 3 million people. And so just because I live in an area that we consider not populated, it's still bigger than,
Stockholm. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you guys think Stockholm is a big area, or Oslo, or wherever you're at. But in the U.S., those would be smaller or considered smaller areas, which is just hard to imagine.
It would be a little town somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you just, but then I look at India and think how small the United States is compared to India or China. So there's always going to be that bigger, area out there. But what it just means is if it's not working in your area, and when I used to teach internationally, I always made a comment, go where the money is.
Yeah.
Whatever that is. If you go to the UK and invest, maybe you're not going to be a cash flow investor in London, but you can be a cash flow investor in Scotland, or maybe in Hull, or some other places like that. Even though I'm not from those areas and I don't have that accent, I still am familiar with the whole UK market. And I've actually, when people ask me what I do, I've taught more in Australia and Canada than I've taught in the US as far as teaching investors. So even though my accent doesn't work in either of those places, I still have taught in a lot of the places and know a lot of different markets. But yeah, there's just a lot of opportunities all over the world to invest. Yeah.
So what is your strategy now going forward? So say one of these bids you put in at 20% discount goes through. What are your plans to make sure that you don't get tugged down in a potential crash?
My concern, and I, everybody that the one thing I have to admit, I don't have a big Facebook presence. I don't have a big social media presence. So you will never probably see me on a Facebook video go and do this or do that, just because that's not who I am. And that's fine. So I'm not going to give you advice. I'm going to tell you exactly what we're doing as a company. We have completely changed. I mean, we do a lot of lease options, buy and hold, that kind of stuff, rehabbing, things like that. But in my opinion, with the exception of lease option, it's buying and holding right now, and definitely rehabbing. I'm scared to death of, because
Mm.
even if I get one of those properties at a 20% discount, and let's say that I close that property, let's just say July 1, I may still be buying at the peak of the market right now. And so I don't know that I want to be buying at any peak of a market, because if I buy it for $300,000 on July 1 and by December 1 it's worth $200,000, which we saw back in 2008, I don't want to be sitting there holding that property. I definitely don't want to be rehabbing it. Now, I will say that if I'm buying for cash flow at $300,000 on July 1, I'm probably still going to be making cash flow even if the property's worth 250 or 200,000 on December 1. So as long as we're buying for cash flow, we're going to look at the numbers, and if the property cash flows well at our offer, at our sale price or purchase price, whatever you want to call it, then we'll probably be in a buy and hold mode. But we're doing a lot of, and now the UK calls it sourcing.
Mm.
I call it wholesaling. It means the exact same thing. So our goal on these properties right now, so let's say that we put out 500 offers this week, and we'll probably put out more than that. But let's just say we put out 500 offers, and I'm only talking on listed properties. If we put out those 500 offers, we may get, and this is what I generally get, about 20 to 40, or probably 20 to 30% reply rate on those. And so those 500 offers will take about an hour to do. So it's not, everything we do is systemized. So it's not like they're taking 10 hours or 20 hours or 40 hours to put out those 500 offers. So we're putting those 500 offers out. Maybe takes us an hour to do that. We may get 100, let's just say we get 100 responses back of those 500. A lot of people won't even email us back. Of that 100, there'll be 5 to 10% that, probably are not real happy and will tell us, why are you making this big discounted offer and you're offending us? Well, I'm sorry I offended you with an email on your offer. I apologize. Big deal. I'll never see that person anyway, so who cares? That's my opinion of it. The other 90% will probably say, thank you for the offer. Here's our counter offer. And some of them will not come down on enough of our price. Probably, I'm going to say 5% of those will give us a counter offer where we can probably negotiate and get to a working number. Now, of those properties, so let's say 5% of 500, whatever that is, 25, my guesstimation is 23 of them we'll try to wholesale out. That will be the goal on the numbers.
Right.
Meaning 1 or 2 of that 500 would be something where we like the numbers, we may want to try to keep and creatively finance the property. Now, that's just on listed properties. So, and that's just something we're doing right now. We're doing a lot of wholesaling. So we've gone back to when I started in this business 19 years ago, 18, 19 years ago. We were doing a lot of wholesaling because we didn't know any better. That's just what we were taught to do. And so, or sourcing, as they would say in the UK. It's a tough business. Daniel, you've done it. It's not an easy business.
Yeah,
But
we did about 100, just over 100 deals before we said that we just can't handle it anymore.
yeah,
I say it's like being an umpire. When you get the call right, no one says thank you. When you make a call wrong, well, you're the most hated person in the universe.
yeah. Anytime you're refereeing any game, 50% of the people love you and 50% of the people hate you. I mean, and that's just the way it is. And so, I'm not excited about wholesaling, but I also realize it's revenue.
Yeah.
And what may not be a deal for our company may be a deal for another company. And there's a lot of people, and this is just my opinion, there's a lot of people still rehabbing here in the United States.
Mm.
And I just think rehabbing is great in an up market. But if you're rehabbing and the only way you're planning on making money is to sell the property,
Yeah.
if you're rehabbing it to rent it out, I'm cool with that. If you're rehabbing it to lease option it out, I'm cool with that. Or if you're rehabbing it to change the use of it into, maybe in the United States, we have a lot of assisted living facilities. So people will buy a house, rehab it so that they can put it into a home for people that are, older and not quite ready for a nursing home, but maybe they need some type of assisted living facility. So there's a lot of that. And I think those things are fine. But if you're just rehabbing like the TV shows and saying, I'm buying it for 300, I'm putting 50 in it, and I hope I sell it for 400.
Mm.
Well, that's great if the market continues to go up. But there were a lot of people caught holding those properties back in 2008. They were buying it for 300, putting 50 into it, thinking they were going to sell it for 400. And all of a sudden, in that 4, 5, 6 month time frame where where they were in their rehab, renovating the property, that market's flipped, and those properties were worth $250,000. So that becomes a major problem for a rehabber if that's the only strategy they have, is to sell it for a profit. If you have other strategies, like maybe it's, like I said, you're going to put it into a rental property, you're going to put it into a lease option or some other uh, greater use for the property, then rehabbing is fine. But just rehabbing for the sheer fact of trying to get a profit on the sale can be a bit of a challenge, especially in a down market.
Mm. No, I completely agree. And I mean, in these times now, you really don't want to be in a situation where, because it's as you say, we don't know. We might be in for a crash like 2008, 2009 with those type of potential, unemployment rates. And obviously we haven't seen really what the effect is because the governments are pumping so much money into the economy.
I think the numbers here in the U.S. I mean, it obviously depends on what media source you get your information from. But I do know the bill that they signed was, a couple of $1 trillion. I mean, those numbers they're like monopoly money mentality. I mean, trillions of dollars. Who even thinks in those terms? But once again, the U.S. is so big and vast and highly populated that $1 trillion gets eaten up. I mean, we have what's called the SBA, Small Business Administration here. And they were putting money out to small business owners, and that money was applied for, and literally over $1 trillion was gone in less than 2 weeks.
Well, just
I
look
mean,
at it. 330 million people. That's $3,000 a piece. There's your trillion.
exactly.
That does not keep a lot of families fed for a long time.
And the problem with the government programs, and I can give you all kinds of examples, but if you didn't make, and I believe it was $75,000, you were eligible to get $1,200 just given to you from the government. If you're a couple that didn't make 150, you could get $2,400, which all is well and good if you're unemployed and you need it. But I work with investors that don't have a lot of traditional income. They're retired folks or close to retirement age, and they don't show a lot of income because most of their money is sitting in investments. I know one person that I work with has multiple millions of dollars, and she got a check for $1,200. She shouldn't be getting that money, but it's hard to, pick and choose who you're going to give that money out to. So all these programs are great for the people that need them, but for the people that don't need them, it's a waste of government taxpayer money. And right now, at some point, we're going to have to pay the piper. And is it my generation? Maybe not, but my kids' generation are going to have to foot that bill for that, few trillions of dollars that were just created. And does that mean, since that money was just printed, is it going to become inflation? I don't know what that's traditionally the effect of it. But we haven't seen a lot of inflation in the United States since the Fed has controlled interest rates. And I know, Daniel, you're probably not even old enough you weren't probably even born yet. I'm not even old enough to hardly remember it. But back in the late 70s, early 1980s, we had a situation where we had high inflation and high unemployment and high interest rates. Yeah. Well, the reason I think a lot of those things haven't happened, whereas we haven't had a high inflation, is because the Fed has controlled the interest rates. I remember going back in the late 70s and early 80s, a loan on a house literally was 20% to get a loan on a property. That's where the interest rates were.
That happened in Sweden in the 90s, actually.
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys remember.
Yeah.
And so those things don't happen as readily because money policy is different now, and the interest rates are controlled. And the reason they control them is so that we don't have those inflationary times. But we've seen a point, and I think we're at it right now in the United States, where the interest rate, and we call it the Fed rate, and that's what banks borrow money from each other. And I don't want to get into money policy because I'm surely not an expert at that either. But right now the rate is at 0%. You can't go any lower. So in
Sweden, we're a -%. So you can. They've proved it. They can go lower if they want to.
So I'm not sure how that all works when you go below, when the banks start paying you to live, to, have money in the banks. Is that how that works in Sweden right now?
Well, right now they've just done interest rate zero in the banks, but the worry people had would, does this mean we will have a negative interest rate, on our bank accounts? Will they
So you
actually
have to
take
pay
money
them.
out? Yeah, exactly. It hasn't happened, luckily, but the government is essentially telling the banks, here's money, and here's some extra interest we'll be paying you instead of you paying us to borrow the money.
I'm not quite sure how that will all end up. But the point I want to get back to, and this is what I've always thought, and I've had the opportunity to teach it all around the world, is it's called real estate for a reason. It's real. Everybody needs it. No matter what happens with money policy, no matter what happens with political or social situations, we have racism and things like that going on in the United States. And there's other countries have different issues. Europe has had the Brexit issue. People still need a place to rest their heads. And property values will go up, they'll go down. Interest rates will go up, they'll go down. As long as we're providing safe, affordable housing for people, I think that will never go out of style. And I think customer service never goes out of style. So as long as you're taking care of people and promising what you or delivering on your promises, I think you're always going to be successful as a real estate investor.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in most markets, and obviously there are crashes like 2008, 2009, but in most crashes or over time, property is very inflation protected. As inflation goes up, so does property.
Yeah, and I think go back to 2008, 2009, there were so many opportunities. As an educated investor, I'm excited when a market changes, when it goes down for whatever reason, because I know there's opportunities there. Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad Poor Dad, I consider him to be one of my mentors. I've taught for him for years. He always says when a law changes, an opportunity arises. So when money policy changes, an opportunity arises. He's been waiting, predicting a big crash since 2015.
Yeah.
And he knows that there'll be huge opportunities to buy more properties as markets fluctuate and they go down. And so I just think it's always, as long as we're understanding that we're buying for cash flow, that will never go out of style.
Yeah. No, and absolutely. I mean, we've actually gone back a little bit into the wholesaling market ourselves, but specifically hotels, because hotels are obviously in trouble. So I have a lot of Asian buyers right now who are saying, we want 100, 200 million pound hotels in London. And I just got from my partner there, we just got 6 new hotels, total value over 1 billion pounds that we're out trying to find buyers for now. And those deals are amazing. Obviously, if you have enough zeros in your bank account, which most people don't, but the deals they're getting are incredible.
Well, and I'm not sure why, but a lot of foreign buyers buy cash. I mean, that's just a very common thing. I know when I go to, and I've taught in Singapore and Hong Kong and Japan and places like that, and a lot of those buyers are taught to buy cash. And where I grew up, everybody does things on leverage and mortgages, and so it's just a different world. And so if you can get something under contract at a price and assign it to somebody at a little higher price and wholesale it or source it, whatever you want to call it, there's huge money to be made there, even if you don't want to be the ultimate end user.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so it's going to be exciting to see where the markets go. Where do you think? I know you can't, you don't have more of a crystal ball than us, but where do you think we'll be in a few years? What do you see?
Well, I think in a few years, I think we're going to be back to where we are maybe today. I think we're going to see quite a bit of a roller coaster. And I don't know, obviously the US market seems to affect the world market a lot, and a lot of, and I'm not trying to say that as a big USA guy beating my chest here, but I do know that a lot of money follows what goes on in the US.
Well, of course.
One of the things that
so much about the financial markets is just people's faith in the market. And since your media is the loudest, what's going on in the US kind of comes to the rest of us, and we start to believe it. And when some people believe the economy, that's what's the truth.
Now, I think, we probably got a time frame here where the next, and I'm going to say from now for the next 2 years, it could be quite a bit of a roller coaster with all the unemployment and the whole pandemic. I mean, we're hearing things about vaccines now. I find it interesting in the U.S. and I know this is going to sound dated 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, but I'm glad it'll be recorded because it's just kind of odd because for 60 days we did not have a single thing where we didn't hear about the pandemic. And now we've got race riots going on in the U.S. and I haven't heard a word about the pandemic.
Mm.
And we couldn't, and I'm not trying to get in a political discussion with anybody. And I'm not boy, I sure hate any time innocent people die, and I also hate any time that it's race related and anything like that. But um, we're gathering for rioting with groups way over 50.
Yeah.
And so I think we're going to see some bumps in those hot spots for COVID coming up because of the race riots. And with that being said, um, the whole issue of some type of vaccine can't come soon enough, quick enough. I probably would more be, and I know I've got a lot of people from Sweden that are going to be on this, listening to this podcast. I admired what you guys did. I wish we would have done more of that in the U.S. That's my opinion. And I know it's not going to be a politically correct opinion for certain people. But point being is, I think once we see the vaccine stuff, and like I said, I saw some stuff just on the news last night and today with the Dr. Fauci here in the United States saying we should have something by the end of the year now. They look like they're in the third phase of the testing, whatever that means. That's 2 phases down, and that they need to get to the 4th phase, and so we're 50% of the way there, which is unusual with most drug testing. It usually takes a little longer process, but they've really fast tracked that. So what that means is if we do have a vaccine and we can start to see some more back to normal situations by next year at this time, I think we're going to start to see a slow rebuild of and maybe it's not even a quicker rebuild of the economies than we maybe were projecting. And so that's a good thing. The one thing, and you talk about the U.S. being the kind of the leader for money policy. I don't know how soon it's going to be. It may not even be in my lifetime, but I guarantee, Daniel, it'll be in your lifetime, is that I think you're going to eventually see where, and this may not, but once again, be politically correct, that the China market influences money policy more than the U.S. market just because of sheer volume.
Yeah.
It's going to take a few years yet, but when is that going to happen? I don't know. And that may totally change a lot of different things in the market. And once again, it's sheer volume. When you have, 330 million people, you can influence a lot of places. But when you have 1.5 billion, you can influence even more. So it'd be interesting to see how that changes not just property markets, but all the markets in everything across the world. The Chinese group of people have changed real estate in every country they've gone to. I don't know about Stockholm, but I'm assuming in most major countries or most major cities I see, there's a lot of Asian people buying property in the big cities. And you made that comment, there's people that want to buy entire hotels and spend hundreds of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of pounds, just like that. And they buy cash, which is interesting because we don't tend to see that in the local markets in the United States.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think another market that is very under-touted is India, which will probably come soon too. I mean, you're talking over 1 billion people there as well. So that's like 2 countries right next to each other that with combined over 2 billion people. The US is on the other side of the world. I do believe that the financial kind of focus will move east rather than west as time goes by.
When will that be? I don't think anybody can put a date on that, but I sure think it's going to happen. And I guess I look at it as probably a perfect model for that, because there was a point in the past when the UK was the center of, London was the financial center of the world.
Yeah.
And when did it move to New York? I don't know when that was, but it obviously moved west. But the UK still is a very solid country with a lot of, huge opportunities there as well. So even if the financial center moves east and moves to Asia, that doesn't mean it's the demise of the UK or the US. It just means that there's different opportunities.
100%. So Before we wrap up, I would love for you to give like one last piece of nugget wisdom there for our audience. What would you like to have as your parting words, so to speak?
Well, and this is something I've said for years, and I stole it from Zig Ziglar, who's just one of my favorite authors, and I got to see him. He's the guy that actually got me in. I went to a large event. I know you guys done a lot of large events, but back in the day, 1990s, 80s, 90s, he was as big a name as there was in personal development, motivation, sales training as there was. And in 2002, I got to go see him on a big stage, and so I saw one of my heroes. I had cassette tapes of his stuff back in the '80s. You probably don't even know what a cassette tape is, Daniel, but that's okay. And so the point being is, I listened to his stuff from the time I was, 13, 14 years old. So I got to see one of my heroes in 2002. And one of the quotes he always touts is, if you help enough other people get what they want, you'll always get what you want, whatever that is. And it doesn't have to be in real estate. It can be in any facet of life. If you help other people get to their goals and their dreams and their desires, that is most definitely going to get you to where you want to be. If you're not to where you want to be, then you just need to help more people. If you keep helping more people, you'll eventually get to wherever it is that you want. And that's not just a financial answer. That can be spiritually, it can be emotionally, it can be politically, whatever term you want to use, socially. And so it's just a matter of helping people. So the advice that I would give is you can't, the best way to help yourself is to help others. And so help other people get what they want. You'll get everything that you want. I never would have gotten into property if I hadn't gone to that big stage seminar that Zig Ziglar was doing. There happened to be a guy talking about real estate there. And I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I can help other people through real estate. I can leverage other people's money. I can help other investors. It just really kind of focused on everything that Zig taught. Now, Zig usually used to talk about it from more of a sales standpoint. He would tell, that's his background. He was in sales, and he would say, in sales, if you sell one more product, when you mean you help one more person get the product that they want, that'll help you get more money and commissions and things like that and grow your business. But I kind of always brought it back to real estate. You help somebody else get into a property. You help an investor get a return. You help somebody find a property, whatever it is, you're helping other people. So help other people get what they want. You'll get everything that you want. That truly is the philosophy I live by, and that I think everybody should look at, because that's truly how we help each other in the world.
I love it. That's awesome. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you, contact you, what's the best way to reach you?
I'm old school. Email is probably the best way. I know Daniel's trying to message me on Facebook. I'm like, I never get on Facebook. My wife keeps telling me I need to get this presence and that presence. And I got an Instagram account, but please don't go there, because I don't even know how to get on there myself. And my daughters are 17 and 15, so they'll laugh when they hear this, but that's okay. But best way to get in touch with me, I'm an email guy. You can friend me on Facebook, obviously. It's just Pip Stehlik. And I think Daniel probably has the spelling of everything on there when you see the podcast, or just Pip Stehlik. And I'm a real high security guy. You're going to find out. pipstehlik@gmail.com. And so I'm sorry, I'm not real versed on all these the technology stuff, but we're always looking to help other investors get more properties in the U.S. and we have access to stuff all across the United States. So if I can tout that out there and put that in there, Daniel, there's huge opportunities here. We've got boots on the ground in cities all across the country. So lots of opportunities here. I was just talking to a guy in the UK about a 15% yield on a property in Tennessee. So the yields are huge. The cash flow is great. And the opportunities, I don't think will ever go away, because there's 330 million people, and every year I believe we grow by 1 or 2%. So that's a whole country of it's definitely more than the entire city of Stockholm added to the U.S.
It's essentially Norway's population every year. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's huge. And so there's always going to be opportunities. And so yeah, pipstehlik@gmail.com, or just Pip Stehlik, friend me on Facebook, and we can go from there. And so if you need to spell I don't know if I need to spell my last name, I'm sure you'll have it out there for everybody.
Yeah, they'll see that in the show notes, so you can see that and get a hold of Pip. That's awesome. If you want to invest in the U.S., I mean, this guy was part of teaching me how to invest in property, so he knows what he's doing.
Well, look forward to seeing you guys down the road, and hopefully when we can get back into some bigger venues, maybe I can come over and see one of your events over there, Daniel. I would love to do that.
Absolutely. You're most welcome. You know that. You'll stay at our place here, and I'll see you again soon. All
Very
right.
cool.
Thank you everyone so much for listening. Pip, thank you so much for joining us. This was incredible.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe.
So thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you see why I am so inspired by Pip. He's done such amazing things, and he's helped me grow my business. And I know if you implement the lessons, what you learned in this episode, you will be able to grow yours. I mean, that's how we grow our business, is by taking these lessons from different experts, putting them together into your unique mix for your unique business, and then growing from there. That's why joining in on these different episodes and learning from all these experts becomes so exciting. It's so exciting for me to interview them because I get to ask the questions. A great place if you want to start networking with other people in this community, if you want to learn from other momentum investors and talk to these experts. A lot of them are actually members in our Facebook community, which you can apply to join. It is the International Property Investors. It's completely free to become a member. You just go to Facebook, you search for International Property Investors, and apply to join. I'll accept you in, and there you'll be able to ask questions, meet other investors. We do a weekly Q&A, so you can ask me questions directly, and we even have some fun competitions where you can even win a coaching call with myself or one of the other mentors. So it's super exciting, and I hope you join the community. Again, it's International Property Investors. It's a Facebook group there. Now, I hope you're looking forward to the next episode here of the Momentum Investing Podcast. I can tell you it was one of the most powerful lessons that I ever got. One of the big challenges we have as investors is a lot of us don't really have the design mindset. A lot of us are very number focused. And that's why a lot of properties, when you look around the architecture of properties, most of them look the same. And if you look at the interior design, most of them look the same. And that is good. I mean, we have a very basic palette of colors and things that make the properties look, livable and get a good rent. But a lot of us are leaving money on the table. There are very, very simple ways that you can use when designing a property or showing it for a potential tenant or for a potential buyer that can greatly increase the value you get as an owner, as a landlord. So I would like you to join our next episode. I mean, the next episode is going to be incredible. I have invited one of the top interior designers in the UK to join us on this episode. Jessica Ulson-Zabel is joining us, and she will be sharing some very, very exciting tips. I mean, if you listen to the episode next week, I was sitting there learning as much as you will. I was asking her questions, and she was telling me exactly how I should design properties, like color-wise and design-wise, to increase my rents, to increase my values. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast through, if you're using iTunes or Google or Spotify, whatever channel you're using, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because that way you'll get a notification when that episode comes out. And I can tell you, if you want to get more rents, if you want to get more money when you're going to sell a property or when you're renting it out, this is one of the most important podcast episodes we've ever shot. I learned so much. I know you're going to learn as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Make sure to subscribe, and thank you for being a part of the community.